Good evening, and thank you for joining tonight's live town hall hosted by Douglas County. This is our 70th live town hall, and part of our commitment, again, 7-0, our commitment to openness and transparency in Douglas County with our citizens. So we really thank you for being here. Tonight, our live town hall was extended to 2 hours, and the reason for that is because we're talking about a detailed topic important to all of us who own property in Douglas County. We're talking about property taxes, and I'm really proud to be part of a group of elected officials here at the podium here that has extended a 1.25 mill levy reduction that has been historic in Douglas County for every year that I've been here, at least the last 5 years or more. But this is our second live town hall on this property tax issue. And we want to continue to take your questions. If you're listening on the phone, we do invite you to head to your computer or pull up the internet on your cell phone and visit douglas.co.us/town hall to view the slides being presented tonight. Now, Commissioner Teal will tell you about the format of tonight's call. Commissioner Teal.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. Well, we do want this to be a live town hall that is very interactive. We want to answer your questions. We know you came with them. If you're joining us on the phone, please press *3 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. For those of you online, please submit your question, and our moderator will read it aloud. For those of you with us in the room, just raise your hand, and we'll bring you the microphone so everyone in the room, online and on the phone, can hear your question. We also have one polling question later on. We're going to keep talking about this issue beyond tonight, and we want to know what you think. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. If you own property, you've now received your notice of value. And you're probably wondering why you're seeing such an increase and what you can do to bring around about some property relief. That's why we are here tonight. There are several complex pieces to this puzzle that we want to explain. And we've been working on this for months. And there's so many different pieces that are involved in Senate Bill 303 that it's hard to get your mind wrapped around everything that's in this one bill. But we're going to start talking about it tonight, so we maybe understand a little bit about what this is. One of those pieces, again, is that notice of value and the process that your county assessor goes through to create that value. We also have 3 guests with us here tonight to talk about what's happening at the state level and what you might see on your November ballot. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce Douglas County Assessor Toby Domish, who has just been so helpful to the commissioners for the last few months. Toby.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Toby Domish, and I am your Douglas County Assessor. I was elected this past November and took office in January, right in the middle of this reappraisal. So it's been quite a few 5 months for me as we perform this 2023 reappraisal. What's happened to date is if you're a Douglas County property owner, everyone in the room knows on the phone, you've received a notice of value, which has shown the most impactful reappraisal that's ever happened in the state of Colorado. And in that notice of value and in this reappraisal, Colorado assessors were required to update their market values from June of 2020 to June of 2022. And in that period of time, saw the largest increase in residential market values in the history of Colorado in any 2-year period. That's what's being reflected on your notice of value, and that's one of the many things we're going to talk about tonight. Before we get into those details, I want to invite you all, whether you're online or here in person later tonight, to go to www.douglas.co.us/town hall, where you can watch the video of this recording as well as get access to all the slides that we will be showing tonight. So before we get into details again, we'll get started with a moderator, Tia, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners and Assessor. Again, we want to get to your questions tonight. To ask a question from the phone, press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Once the operator notes your information, you'll be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until it's your turn. Since we would like to hear from as many people as possible, we will limit all speakers to only 1 question. When it's your turn, I will call your name, ask you to repeat your question for our live audience. If you are here with us in the room, please remember we need to bring you a microphone so everyone can hear your question. Again, We invite you to follow along with the slides tonight at douglas.co.us/townhall. Commissioner Layden?
Thank you, Tia. I'd like to welcome our panel here tonight. We have, again, our County Assessor, Tomi Damisch, Michael Fields with the Advanced Colorado Institute, Annalise Steele with Colorado Concern, and Representative Lisa Frizzell. Panel, if you'll briefly introduce yourself, your organization, and the key points from your organization. We'll start with Toby.
Again, Toby Damisch, County Assessor, and I'm responsible for running your County Assessor's office, and our office is responsible for not just this reappraisal, but the appeals process that we are in right now.
Good evening. I'm State Representative Lisa Frizzell, just finishing my first term as state representative, but former county assessor and worked in the assessor's office for about 25 years. Worked through a lot of this legislation this session, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about exactly what happened in this legislative session around property taxes.
I'm Michael Fields. I am the president of Advanced Colorado Institute, and I've been working on property tax issues at the state level for several years now. It wasn't the most exciting one a few years ago, and then now everybody gets their reassessments and everybody's interested, which I think is a good thing because there's a long history about how we got where we are. And I wanted to just point out, being a non-elected official up here with a bunch of elected officials in Douglas County, these people are very good on this issue. They've been fighting very hard to do what's best, not only for the county, but also taxpayers, citizens, property owners, et cetera. We have great experts in our county. We're lucky to have them. Toby, Representative Frizzell has been working on this for so many years, went down to the Capitol, tried very hard to fight for property owners. And unfortunately, her bills, her ideas got shot down. But this is, again, something that stems really from the Gallagher repeal a few years ago, where you would be at a 5% or so assessment rate. The bill that they're proposing, the ballot measure they're proposing, would keep it at 6.7%. That's 34% higher than it would be under Gallagher. And our organization has been working and will continue to work on capping the increase in property taxes, making sure that our local services have enough money to take care of all the great stuff. These county commissioners do a great job with our money. I'm a Douglas County resident, but our property taxes, our assessed value went up 44%, right? And this Prop HH idea is only going to lower that by a little bit. But I think what people also need to know about that is that on the flip side of it, that you are going to lose Tabor refunds. You're going to lose them more and more each year until they are totally gone. And it is $10 billion over the next 10 years. And the legislature has every ability right now to lower assessment rates, to cap property taxes. They don't need voter approval for any of that. So this is something that we've been pushing, is saying, call a special session, do something now, because people are struggling, and you have all the way to the end of the year, right? Until January, they can still call a special session, actually cap or lower this assessment rate much more. And so this is the ideas that we're pushing, is just letting people know that the ballot language in there is not going to tell you the whole story. This is not surplus money that's sitting there. This is money that would go back to us if not for this vote, this bill, and talking about how little the property tax relief actually is. If you look at our assessment rates, it would be 6.76%. Under this bill, 6.7%. So it drops 0.06%. And then asks for Tabor refund. So I think part of it, if that's what you want to do, fine. But having people be informed and understand what is going on is important. We're an organization that doesn't think Prop HH is a good idea. So I'm gonna end up leaving early. I'll be around for a few questions, but I wanted to get some of that information in, just so you're aware that we need a larger, long-term solution to this, and that is not what's being proposed right now.
Thank
Great.
you, Michael.
Annalise.
Yes, my name is Annalise Steele, and I'm the Senior Director of Public Affairs with Colorado Concern. We began sounding the alarm about the astronomical increase in property valuations several years ago. We put a measure on the ballot to cap assessed values and worked diligently to create over $700 million of property tax reduction that you will see this year. It doesn't feel like it, but it is quite a bit. And we went back and worked closely with the governor to look at long-term reform. This is a 10-year plan that's coming forward. So this is for the next 10 years, and it can only be reauthorized if the tax rates remain low. I think what Michael said is a little misleading. Next year, the residential assessment rate goes back to 7.15. This reduces it to 6.7. So it is a substantial cut for residential, but it's also a substantial cut for our businesses. Under Gallagher, the system got wildly distorted. So businesses are paying 29% property tax rates. And over the next 10 years, this steps it down to 25.9. And we still think that that is too high, but it is reform. I took a look at your average house here in Douglas County, which is valued at $818,000. And over the next 10 years, you're going to be saving at least just under $5,000. And that goes up to just over $10,000. And the reason it varies is because of something called truth in taxation, which is a measure that's inside SB 303 or Proposition HH. And you live in Douglas County, you have great commissioners. My guess is they're going to make sure that your tax revenue does not increase above inflation based off of the mill levy reductions they've already done. So your county is proving it, but you have to show up at meetings, they have to hold a public meeting, and they have to take a public vote. And if their vote is not in alignment with your values, you can vote them out of office. But it essentially requires them to keep property tax revenue, not rate. So with Tabor, it's rate. And as assessed values grow, all of a sudden this revenue can grow out of control. So it reconstrains a lot of local governments. And what's interesting and difficult about this package is that, yes, there's a backfill mechanism. And that backfill mechanism is targeted at our schools, it's targeted at our fire districts and at our water districts. We agree with Michael Fields that this could have been done legislatively, that this didn't need to go to the ballot, that this could have been done without a Tabor backfill. But the thing is that great legislation dies all the time because you don't have bipartisan support and you don't have the support of the folks that are truly in charge. We worked diligently on this package and do support it. Since I have the floor, I'll just extend a little bit more. We're a business organization. We're a CEO alliance representing the business community and the broader economic development of our state. So we're really focused on business commercial property taxes. And for a $3.3 million commercial property, your revenue, your savings over the next 10 years are just under $45,000 and go up to over $146,000, depending on if those local government officials reduce the mill levies to keep it under that new revenue cap. It's really complicated. This subject matter is intentionally dense. I mean, those assessors over there, they deal with something, it's a 5,000-page document that tells them how to do their job. This entire field is too complicated. And we've been working for the last 4 years to try and make it more transparent, easier to understand, more fair for taxpayers. And this is one step in that process.
Well, thank you, Annalise. I know this was our time for introductions and we kind of got into the weeds a bit. Let me just ask if there's anyone on our panel that would like to respond. Michael?
Just very quickly, I think one of these things that you all should look at if you're interested in this bill is the fiscal note. So if you go online, you look up the bill, you look up the fiscal note, it will show the rates by year. And it shows that next year's rate, the property tax you'll be paying in 2024, the rate is 6.76%. It will go down to 6.7%. So it's all there in the fiscal note. It also, Ledge Council, which works for the state nonpartisan, talks about the Tabor refund side and how it would be $10 billion over 10 years.
Thank you, Michael. Representative Frizzell?
Thank you, Commissioner. I would just like to say that having lived the good life in the legislature over the last several months and trying to work with the governor's office on options for property tax relief. I respectfully disagree. This is not Senate Bill 303, whatever this initiative proposition ends up being called at the ballot box in November, was not a bipartisan bill. It was not properly stakeholdered. It was created in the governor's office without any input from counties, from special district associations, from citizens. You have to understand, it's very important that the state does not have skin in the game when it comes to property taxes. They do not collect property taxes. This is a local government funding mechanism. And the people who should have been at the table were not. And when asked why, Senate Bill 303 was introduced with literally 1 week left in the session, 1 week. Both the governor and one of the Senate sponsors said it was because they just got the numbers. They had just gotten the numbers. Well, that, my friends, is a load of hooey. Because as assessor, and every assessor in this state has been singing this song for a year. The state knew, the governor knew, the politicians knew, and they did this in a dark room on the first floor of the Capitol. And they're calling it a property tax relief, but all it is a way to get rid of Tabor, which the Democrats have been wanting to do for a really, really, really long time. So let's call it what it is. This is not a property tax relief bill. I'm very, very disappointed. And we can go into this a little bit more, but I needed to say my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Frizzell. So with that, let's go ahead and move into some questions. Commissioner Teal?
Yeah, thank you. So folks, I'm sure you could tell we brought together a panel tonight. We do know quite a bit about the subject, but what's really important are any questions from you guys. And I believe, Tia, our first question is one that we received online. Go ahead and lay it on the panel.
All right. Yes, Dana has asked, what can I do to see the properties used to establish value for my home?
Toby, would you like to handle that one, sir?
You bet. So the fine Representative Frizzell next to me was county assessor for quite a few years. And one of the things she did was implement a project to rewrite our website. And that website ended up winning awards, national awards, on its transparency and the tools it provided our citizens. One of the things you can do is go to our website, which is douglas.co.us/assessor, and go to the property search, which is right there on the front page, enter in your property and look at it. And there's a lot of information there. You can see the tax authorities that you pay into for that property, the sales history, the value history, tax history. You can see historical notices of value. You can see the results of appeals over the course of years. We've really put our entire database online. One of the most important things you can do is click a little button that says View Neighborhood Sales. And if you do that, you get to view the actual sales that were used in the valuation model for that particular neighborhood, for that particular property. It's very clear. It's got all the data we use, and it has a really nice map with it. Now, I want to say this as a quick add-on. If you choose to file an appeal, what happens at that point is my office I, as your county assessor, will assign that appeal to a county appraiser, a staff appraiser, licensed appraiser who knows the neighborhood. And then they will start from scratch and do a new analysis, an independent analysis on that particular property using the very same data that you can see online. And the result of that is going to be a new analysis, perhaps a new number, perhaps an adjustment. Historically, our office on county appeals have adjusted 25 to 40% of appeals at assessor level, and I expect that number to be over 50% this year. So if you're angry, if you're irritated, if you're mad about this, the thing you can do right now is engage my office. You can do that online, on the phone, or in person, or by mail. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Toby. Tia, looks like we got another online question.
Yes, this one comes in from Beth and Ken. They want to know, is there an income cap for the senior discount?
Toby, that sounds like another good one for you, sir. Or Representative, would you like to take that one? You've only been doing this before you became a representative, so it's almost a toss ball between the two of you.
I think I heard the question was, is there an income tax credit? Was that the income cap on?
The income cap for the senior discount.
No. All right. So let's talk a little bit about seniors because they're so important to us. There is a law which implements a senior property tax exemption in the state of Colorado. And if you're 65 years of age or older and have lived in your home and owned it for 10 years, you qualify for that exemption. And that exemption reduces the first $100,000 of value off of your property. So in Douglas County, that could be $500 to $1,000 in savings. There is no income tax cap for that or any other financial cap. Now, if you, for this year only, last year, taxes payable this year, if you do not qualify for that senior exemption because you have not lived in your home for 10 years, you can qualify for a one-time income tax credit of $1,000. So for those of you on the phone and line in person who have not qualified for the senior exemption just because of that 10-year rule, check with your accountant and see if they took advantage of that credit.
Thank you. I just want to remind you to press *3 on your keypad if you would like to ask a question. You can also participate online at douglas.co.us/townhall. And if you're just joining us on the phone, we invite you to visit us at douglas.co.us where you can find a copy of the visuals being presented tonight. Let's go to our assessor now.
Before we go to the assessor, let's hear from Annalise. It sounded like, ma'am, you wanted to
jump
add
in
on to
real
that.
quickly on here because the senior homestead exemption is a fantastic piece of legislation that helps so many people, but it doesn't help enough. And part of the reason is because you have to live in your home for 10 years and then you have to stay in that home. So part of what Proposition HH will do is allow portability for the senior homestead exemption. So once you get it, you can then relocate and downsize if you no longer fit into your home in order to create that circulation in the economy. So that's something that we're really proud to include inside there. And I wanted to make sure that that was well known.
All right. Thank you, Annalise. Appreciate it. Toby, you've got a great deal. You've got a slideshow for us that has a great deal of the information on background. Why don't you go into that, sir?
Okay, let's see here. First, let's start. We're going to go through a few slides. Now, there's a PowerPoint slide that's available on the website that's got all the slides that you can see tonight. We're not going to go through all of them. Some of these slides are there so that you can download it and read it, such as how do you file online appeal. So there's three slides on that, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. That's just available for your information. So let's start with what this reappraisal is. And I think the way to do that is start with how to calculate taxes, because this is so important. And the reason it's so important is it's really crucial for all of us to understand, especially now that Gallagher's gone and all the laws are constantly changing every year. How does your tax bill get calculated? What's really in it? And there's three main components. There's the assessor's actual value. That's the value that is determined by my office that is mailed to you in the form of the notice of value. And that is the number that's gone up so much this year across the state of Colorado. The second number, we take that number and multiply it against the assessment rate. Mr. Fields spoke about this earlier. The assessment rate is the tax rate. The rate gets applied to that based on the property class. Currently, that number is 6.765. Last year, it was 6.95. I just want you to visualize this for a minute. The residential assessment rate went down from 6.95% to 6.765%, which is about 3% decrease in a year in which values went up 50%. Is anyone in this room going to notice that? You're going to notice the increase, but you're not going to notice the decrease in the assessment rate, right? All right. If Gallagher was still in play, that assessment rate would be less than 6. It'd be less than 5. I think the last estimate I saw was 4.8. And none of us would be here because you would all have these large increases, but your estimated taxes would be flat. The last part of the calculation is your local mill levy. The local mill levy is not controlled by your county commissioners. The only mill levy that your county commissioners can control is the Douglas County government or the county government mill levy. And so each of us pay into a handful or more of local taxing authorities. That includes your school district, your library, law enforcement, special districts, county, municipality, metropolitan districts, so on and so forth. And so it is now really going to be required since Gallagher has been repealed, for us as Colorado citizens to really understand where our taxes go. We can't just blame the assessor anymore. I'm happy to talk to you all about appeals, happy to. But all three of those components, we must be aware of them from now on. We're going to talk more about all those. I want to talk about this slide. Thank you, Mr. Fields.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Appreciate you coming.
This is an example which paints a picture of what happened in this reappraisal and puts into it a property tax calculation. This is a house that's in around the corner from me in my neighborhood in Douglas County. And what you see in the top paragraph on the left there is the prior value, the 2022 value. And this home was appraised by my office at $687,000. Last year, the assessment rate was 6.95%. So this is the property tax calculation at work. That got to an assessed value of about $47,000. The total mill levy in this area was about $138, which yielded taxes for this property at $6,600. So that would, for this property, that was the bill that these folks received this past January that they just paid on. Now let's fast forward to May 1. My office completed a reappraisal according to the law, a reappraisal which required market value, which required an appraisal date of June 30 of 2022, and which did not allow us to cap or limit that increase as an assessor in any way. The new value for this property, because of sales in the neighborhood, is $976,000. There's a $15,000 adjustment, which, by the way, is less than 2% of that value due to Senate Bill 238 last year. Follow it down, we've got taxes of almost $9,000. It's almost a 50% increase in taxes after Senate Bill 238. I just want to mention Representative Frizzell next to me had a bill, HB 1054, which was in session this year, that was killed in committee, which would have capped value increase at 5% a year. It was killed in committee. They didn't even get to talk about it. It didn't get to the floor. Last point, if you look under the picture, that if Gallagher was in place, this is what the tax calculation would look like for this property. And if you notice, what do you notice about it? The value goes way up and the taxes are about the same. This is because we repealed Gallagher. I think I used up quite a bit of time there. So Commissioner Thomas, I think you're next.
Thank you. So who has a question that would like to ask it to the panel? Yes, sir.
Ash, if there was a house sold and I understand you use the sale price within a criteria of 2020 through June of 2022, if it was sold for $585,000, how can it be assessed at $718,000 today?
Okay.
Falls into that criteria.
Yeah, very good question.
Also, I noticed on there that they added the value of the property, the lot, well, the property and the building and the lot are all inclusive, but they took the land and they took the house and they combined those values of what the property was estimated at. And it's almost like you've taken the $585,000 and added the value of the property back into it to come up with the $718,000.
Thank you, sir. Toby?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. The question I heard is, there's a sale price. Is that of the subject property? So a property sold for $500 and it's valued at $7? Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you that is the best evidence to file an appeal and get a reduction. So you should do that. All right. My office will respond to that, I assure you. So the question is, how does it get there? And here's why. Our staff, we have 125,000 properties, residential properties in Douglas County, 160,000 properties total. And as of May 1, our office did not perform individual appraisals on every property. What we've done is a mass appraisal. So it's a whole bunch of math. And really what's happening is you've got all the sales in your neighborhood, in every neighborhood, that's driving the valuation model for every property within that neighborhood. So an individual sale of an individual property is only affecting the value of that property as much as all the other sales in the neighborhood. All right. So something is making that house go to 700, and it would be explained by the data. And if you came in and spoke to us, we could explain to you exactly how. I can't do that now without knowing the address. Having said that, you've just described the perfect appeal with your county assessor with the greatest evidence, the sale of the property in the study period at a lower number. But most people don't have that. So let me take a step forward. Most people's property who are facing this situation haven't sold. And so what do they do when they've seen that increase? Well, look around and do two things. One, ask the question, what could you have sold your property for last spring? Why I say last spring is we are not allowed by law to consider data past June of 2022. You know that, sir. All right. Because of the appraisal date of June 30th, the law doesn't allow us to go past that. And so our appraisers will really focus on that first 6 months of 2022, but going back, a full 18 months, which is known as a study period, and looking for sales and doing a new analysis and developing their own opinion of value. And if that value is lower than what we have, then they're going to decrease it. All right. And by the way, these decisions on appeals are due August 15th of this year. So we'll mail them on August 15th and also publish them online. And when we do that, we're going to publish a summary of our appraisers' work. So you're going to see their work in front of you when it's done.
Thank you, Toby. Somebody had their hand raised back here for one more question from the hearing room. Thank you. Al?
Thank you. Al Duff from Highlands Ranch. The question pertains to the recent note that I read representing that we're going to be filing a lawsuit as a county against the state. And what is the likelihood that the law will be in our favor? And how can we demonstrate that the governor's office has overreached his authority to do the bait and switch on the Tabor legislation? And if you respond, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Laura, if you want to take that, but I'm happy to add in too. I personally, I feel it's pretty good. The lawsuit is pretty good, just due to the fact that Colorado Constitution guarantees any referendum is a single subject, so that when you're asked to vote on it on the November ballot, it's a single subject. It's not the phrase that gets used as log rolling. There aren't several items that are log rolled into it under one single title, which is is the way that Congress passes a lot of bills. There'll be the main bill, but then there'll be additional stuff underneath that probably, may or may not have anything to do with the actual title of the bill. You can't do that in Colorado law. What we're seeing with Senate Bill 303 that created Proposition HH is that there's several provisions. And, I really appreciate Annalise Steele being here from Colorado Concern. She's here at my invitation. She made a really good point a few minutes ago that the senior homestead exemption on property tax is included in Senate Bill 303 to make it portable. So you don't have to live in your home for 10 years, but you have to have lived in Colorado for 10 years. And then if you're a senior, well, then you can receive that exemption even if you just moved into a home recently. Okay, that's great. That's a phenomenal piece of policy rolled into this bill. But it's under a title of, tax reduction, property tax reduction. And then, of course, the additional provision where it's taking away our Tabor refunds. By the way, people forget, Tabor doesn't stand for the guy who did mining up in Cripple Creek. It stands for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights that was passed by a referendum of the people of Colorado back in the 90s. I was still here. That was before I went back on active duty as an Army officer. And so those are three items that are under the bill title that, are they related? Well, yeah, if you stand back and you squint, I guess they're related. So I feel very good about the lawsuit going through. I'm proud to put my name on it. I'm very proud of my colleagues that that all three of us joined together to put our names on that lawsuit. And I feel very confident about it. Abe, Laura, I don't know if you guys wanted to pitch in on that one too.
I was just going to say it's too bad that Michael Fields left, the gentleman that was at the end,
Yeah.
because he is with Advance Colorado. He's the one who filed the lawsuit. And I would not have put my name on it if I did not understand all the reasons that we sued under. And I think there are a lot of things about this. It was done in the dark with no input. It's got little sweeteners in it for seniors to vote for it because it makes the homestead portable. But in the long run, y'all miss out on your Tabor refunds. So I think that we need to go back to the table and create something that is good for everybody, not the special interests, school and climate change that benefit from this bill. Thank you.
And I'll just echo that. I certainly support my colleagues. And I think if you know any of the three of us, none of us are afraid to take on a fight, and one that's a righteous one to ensure that we're protecting those that we serve. In Douglas County, you're the boss, not us. And so again, remaining fiscally conservative, managing a balanced budget, making sure that we're debt free, that's just part of who we are. That's part of our DNA. And for us, ensuring that there is transparency and there's understanding, there's no bait and switch. There are a variety of reasons that we feel very confident in signing on to this lawsuit. Representative?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I just wanted to add to this conversation around the lawsuit. The reality is many of the items in this bill do not have to go to a vote. The Republican caucus for years, I have personally been downtown testifying to make the senior property tax exemption portable and to expand it, both year after year after year. And we were turned away in committee every single time because for a lot of different reasons that we won't go into. This can be done legislatively, and it should have been done legislatively. All this is sweetener. The reduction in the assessment rate, which is a finely chewed bone that the state is throwing to the citizens of the state, is not just disappointing, but reprehensible. That assessment rate should have been lowered legislatively. We should not even be having this conversation. The legislature should have taken care of business. The only thing that needs to go to a vote of the people is losing your Tabor rights, losing your taxpayer bill of rights. That's the only thing that you are voting on. And that needs to be clear.
So with that, thank you, Representative Frizzell. Let me just ask our moderators, do we want to go to our panel or shall we go to some online questions?
I think we're going to go ahead and repeat the website address that was given out earlier, and then we have a few on the phone. The website address is douglas.co.us/assessor. And with that, we're going to go to Lola, who is our first question on the phone. Lola, go ahead and ask your question. You're live.
Yes, actually, I have two really quick questions. One, I have 10 acres, but it's in 5-acre segments. My house is on 5 acres. So I'm a senior. I've lived in my house almost 40 years. Can I get that advantage of that senior discount on both properties since it's adjacent and it's all fenced in as one property? But yet I'm charged a tax on the 5 acres and then charged a tax on the 5 acres plus my house.
Okay, I'm going to make some assumptions that we've got two legal buildable lots here, and then we've and they got separate legal descriptions, and we've valued them separately. So you can get the senior exemption on the property with a house on it, and that's where the senior exemption would apply. But what I would ask you to look at as to whether we've classified your property as a contiguous residential parcel. You might be charged what's called the vacant land or non-residential assessment rate on that lot that is contiguous or next to you, you want to call our office and make sure that you've got the correct assessment rate. That will save you a whole bunch of taxes if that's not done yet. So again, I'd say call our office and make sure that you have contiguous parcel classification on the adjacent lot, please.
Okay, and that's not, information is not available online. I have to.
It actually is. It's just coded. And so that's why I'm suggesting you call. And they can show you how to see it online too while you're speaking with the public assistants.
Thank you, Assessor. I
And
think
then
we have
the second
another
question
question from the phone.
I just have one.
Next, we're going to go to Julie. Julie, go ahead and ask your question. You're live with our audience.
Good evening, Commissioner Thomas. A question for you. You had mentioned at the first town hall that citizens need to be more aware, more educated on the approved mill levy for the special metro districts. In your experience, in your opinion, what should a Douglas County resident of one of these special metro districts do to become more educated in holding those council members more accountable regarding the mill levies for these special districts?
Well, that is an excellent question. Thank you for being on our last town hall. So what the caller is asking about are the mills on your property tax for a special district. So what I suggested in that town hall is go to Douglas Assessor, and then there's a bar where you can type in your address. Type in your address, and then when your home comes up, scroll down a little bit, and on the left side, there's a bar that says Tax Authorities. Click on that, and you will see a list of everybody that you pay property tax to based on the number of mills. And look through that. You'll all have the school district on there. You'll have the county on there. You'll have the library on there. If you live in an area that has a developer metro district, I live in Highlands Ranch, so I have the Highlands Ranch Metro District there. There's 11 mills. There are other metro districts that have 90 mills or more. If you live in one of those districts, you need to find out who your elected people are. So go to the special districts website to find out how to contact your metro district. And then you need to contact your metro district before HH passes, and start talking to those people at your metro district and making sure that they know that you are watching, that you are aware, and you are not going to tolerate paying mills at 90 mills for your property if HH passes. The more people that start reaching out to those board members now, the more opportunity you're going to have to keep those mills within a payable amount. So thank you for listening to our last town hall. Do either of you, the assessor or the representative, have something to add to that?
Again, Toby Damish, assessor. Our website has every authority that each of us pays into. You look up, again, you do a search, find your property. You can drill down. There's an area called tax authorities. You can see the contact information for each authority, from your own county commissioners down to the schools, down to the local special district, phone number, email, the whole 9 yards. And it's a place to get started. That might not get you to the person you want to talk to. That's a place to start. And this is something where we all need to be aware of this from now on. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Assessor. Folks, we want to go back to the room. Anybody have any questions? Please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am. We're going to come to you next. I wonder if you could stand up, tell us your name, where you're from, and then go ahead and ask your question.
My name is Charlie Lovejoy. I live in Happy Canyon. I'm 73 years old. And you know, you talk about this exemption for older people. For me, it was $500. And yet my taxes were over $4,000. Oh, a measly $500. I think what I should do is, since I don't have any grandchildren in school, take off the schools. I'll pay everything else. I don't want to pay the schools because I don't even have grandchildren in school.
Okay, well, golly, who would like to take that one? I mean, Representative, certainly you got some input for a bill that could be run next year, but Toby, would you like to go ahead and take that one?
We hear this every day. We hear it 50 times a day. We, at the county, we have tremendous sympathy and empathy for you. We've got to get an expert raising her hand over here, so we'll let her jump in. There's a lot of pressure on paying property taxes in this situation. And you probably, what I hear you say is that they've been bad and now you're hearing it's getting worse and what you can do about it. I just want to say, we understand this. We're fighting for you. We're doing everything we can from the assessor's office all the way down. And this is not going to stop tonight. We're going to be talking about this the rest of the year because we have ballot measures and other things going on. So
Build a school for all those homes. And it doesn't bear on us. That's not fair.
So we actually have one of our experts from the school district. Jana, I know this stuff you deal with all the time. Would you like to address some of that?
I would love to. Thank you. So my name is Jana. I'm the CFO at the school district. I'm going to talk about why schools are different than the other things that you see on this graph. And it looks like a big piece of this graph, and it is. That's 42%, almost 43%. So when taxes go up, all these other entities on here are getting more money. The school district does not. The amount that a school district gets is set in law. We get a set amount per student. As local property taxes go up, the state pays less. It does not mean we get more money. So I just want to make that very clear that this affects school districts in a very different way than these other taxing entities. So even as Proposition HH, if that passed, it would just change who pays the exact same bill.
Okay, thank you, Jana. Appreciate that information. Representative, I think you wanted to jump in.
I did. Thank you so much, Commissioner. You know, I completely understand. We hear this question not only from homeowners, but from folks who own vacant land or even commercial property owners. People who own commercial property aren't sending children to school, but they are paying the taxes for the school district. If you have a piece of vacant land, your chances are not using emergency responders. You know, your fire, maybe fire if there happens to be a grass fire, but those services, you may not be hooked up to the water and sanitation district, but you're still paying those taxes. In the state of Colorado, if the property is within the boundary of a taxing entity and they still are providing services, it doesn't seem fair, but it is the opportunity to have access to those schools, to the first responders, to the water and sanitation services, to the government services. It is that opportunity that is what is creating that burden. Further, if you were to start peeling away the provision of those services, it would actually cause the property to decrease in value because you wouldn't have that availability. And so that is not the happy answer to your question, because I certainly understand what you're saying, but this is not just applying to residential property owners who no longer have kiddos in schools. It's across the board.
So Representative Frizzell, what would happen if someone chose to peel out a portion, perhaps their school taxes, and pay all of their other taxes, but not pay the school taxes?
Well, the county treasurer would be better to answer that question, Commissioner. However, those portion of the taxes would be considered unpaid and would be subject to tax lien. And so that is actually a question for the county treasurer. However, as I understand it, that's what would happen.
Go ahead and make that statement again, ma'am, so that
Okay.
everybody can hear.
My sister lives in Villa Rica, Georgia. They take off her school taxes, but she pays all the rest. So her taxes for the year is $600. But you won't do that for us. And I bet you there are other counties like that in the United States that do the same thing for senior citizens.
And actually, okay, history moment for a second. Actually, the history of fire districts in Colorado, initially, it was based on a subscription. And so if you didn't pay a subscription to the fire department and your house caught on fire, they wouldn't actually come to the aid. So we do see that changes in taxation, like you mentioned, ma'am, in Georgia, probably in other states of the union. In Colorado, though, I think the representative did a very good job of outlining the way it's done here. And so obviously, Representative, maybe a note to take, a discussion to be had. Do we have another question here in the hearing room? Oh, well, luckily proximity. Yes, ma'am. Give your name and where you're from.
My name is Jamie. I also live in Happy Canyon. So my question is, we don't live in a cookie cutter neighborhood. We have everything from, a mobile home that sits on whatever acreage to the huge farm, equestrian farm. So there's no good way for me to find comparables. And I don't feel like it's fair to go outside my neighborhood and compare me to other homes that have sidewalks and playgrounds and those type of things that my neighborhood doesn't have. So how do I fight to say my house isn't worth this much, but there's really nothing to compare it to? There's literally not another home exactly like mine.
I understand, and that's one of the most common arguments. The good news is the data you have available is the data we have available. So we all have to use what's available to us. So we would certainly start in Happy Canyon and use what's available there. If we have to go outside of Happy Canyon, let's say you file an appeal, it's assigned to an appraiser. That appraiser is digging in and he's starting to look at comps just like you might. And they start inside your neighborhood and use everything they can there. If they have to go out, they will go out. But if those are facts about that particular case, they've got to consider that. And so if they're using a comparable from another neighborhood, they have to ask questions like, okay, what kind of difference in infrastructure? Is it a better location? Are the lot sizes different? I think we surprise people on the number of characteristics and variables that we look at. We have 50 or 60 property characteristics that we're looking at for homes. It's not an average price per square foot. Anything that you find of value, positive or negative about your house, we are contemplating it. And so one thing that you can do if you've got a complicated property or a complicated neighborhood, which Happy Canyon is, all right, is you can talk to us in person. So you can schedule a meeting with the assessor's office and explain the situation. Now, we'll have an appraiser or two who are experts or knowledgeable in your neighborhood. They'll know the streets. They'll know exactly what you just said. And you'll be able to talk to someone who knows that and have a real substantive conversation about that. And that's going to help inform them in their analysis and making a decision. Ultimately, if there's no sales there, they have to go out and find something, because we have to get to an answer. Like, we can't set it at 0, no matter how much I'd like to do that for you. There's got to be a number that we get to, and we got to use the data to do that. So the more complicated your situation is, the more I suggest you talk to us in person, start with a phone call, or come visit with us. If you're in Highlands Ranch, it is super easy to just sign your postcard and mail it in, because we've got so much data to work with for properties like that.
Thank you, Toby. Tia, do we have a phone question?
Yes, we do. Let's go to Kathleen. Kathleen, you're live with our audience. Go ahead and ask your question. Kathleen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
On mute? Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm here. I'm going back to the chart where we looked at the home that was $687,000 and what happened with the new tax valuation. And when you're looking at the 2023 actual value of $976,267, there's an exemption underneath it of $15,000. What is that exemption?
Thank you for your question, Kathleen. So that exemption was created by Senate Bill 238 last year. As we've talked a little bit about, the state had, the good people of the state of Colorado repealed the Gallagher Amendment to the Constitution a couple of years ago. And I think one of the unfortunate things about that is the intent was to repeal and replace, but there was no replacement. And so rather than without having any other mechanism, the state legislature began to work to modify assessment rates in response to increasing property values. And so one of the things that the state legislature did last year in 2022 was they passed Senate Bill 238, which decreased, as Assessor Dalvish mentioned earlier, decreased the assessment rate by about 3%. And it also created this small reduction. It's called an exemption. I don't really feel like it falls under that category, but it was a temporary reduction in the actual value for residential property. That amount was $15,000.
Thank you, Representative Frizzell. And I believe there's another phone question, Tia.
Yes, now we're going to hear from Aaron. Aaron, go ahead with your question. Are you there? Go ahead, you're live.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So I was asking about senior tax credit. So you need to be 65. What date you should be 65? It is 1st of January, May, or December? That's what I wanted to ask.
That's January 1st of each year to receive that exemption for the following year. So January 1. So if you turn 65, thank you, this year, then you'll want to apply in my office for the senior exemption after January 1st of 2024.
Thank you. Now we're going to go online. Linda has a question that says, and she asks, how long should I expect it to take to get a response from the online appeal of my property tax?
Great question. Thanks for reminding us about dates. So we sent out notices of value May 1. The deadline to file an appeal is June 8th. So one of the most important things to walk away from today is that date. June 8th is the deadline to file an appeal. Then the county assessor continues to perform their analysis. And we have to, in Douglas County, we have to finish that by August 15th. And so on August 15th, we will mail notices, what we call notices of determination, NODs, and we will also provide those online. Now, for anyone who does not live in Douglas County, you might have different dates there. Most counties in Colorado will have their decisions completed by July 1. Your Board of County Commissioners decided that to allow your county assessor to have more time to do this work, which we need. We already have 11,000 appeals. I can't get them done by July 1. We want to give them all their appropriate time. All right, so we're gonna be on what's called extended appeals, which means we'll take until August 15th to make those decisions. You'll receive your NOD in the mail. You can also view it online. At that time, you can then make a decision whether you want to file on to the next level. If you're not satisfied with the decision after filing an appeal, you can continue on to the County Board of Equalization. The deadline for filing to that in Douglas County is September 15th. CBOE hearings are held in Douglas County in the months of September and October. So again, if you're in Arapahoe County, they're on a shorter deadline. Their decisions are going to be out by July 1, and they have CBOE in the month of July. Because you're in Douglas and you don't get it, don't be upset. We're just taking more time because we need it.
So thank you for that. Just to get back on track with some of our planned agenda items tonight, Assessor Damish, did you want to go through some of your specific property examples?
Yes, let's do that. What we've got in the online, first of all, I want to stop here. We've talked a lot about Gallagher. And this chart helps illustrate what's happened in this particular year. The Gallagher Amendment was passed in 1982. And what that did was fix the non-residential assessment rate, what we call the commercial assessment rate, at 29%. So if you remember that tax calculation, assessor's actual value times the assessment rate times the local levy. That second number is the assessment rate. And in 1982, the residential assessment rate started at 29%. It immediately went down to 21. And because of residential property values increasing in the state of Colorado over these decades, that number has floated down. The beautiful thing about that is it has kept Colorado as having some of the most affordable residential property taxes in the entire country. That chart has done that. We have been in the top 5 for low property taxes for residential properties. Well, that's changing. Gallagher's repealed, and so that number will no longer float down automatically. That number will no longer float down automatically as values go up. So we repeal Gallagher, and what happens? The residential real estate market explodes. And again, if Gallagher continued, we'd have another bar in that chart, and the top bar would say 4.5 or 5. It would say a much lower number. So we don't have the advantage of that. The assessment rates are now in the hands of state lawmakers, and as has been mentioned, I'm going to fast forward to our slides here. Apologize. As has been mentioned a couple of times, the residential assessment rate due to Senate Bill 238 is now 6.765. By the way, Senate Bill 303, otherwise known as Prop HH, as Mr. Fields stated, only decreases the residential rate another 0.065%. That's less than 1%. So the question is about going through an example. So we've got an example here, and I'm going to do my best to walk through this. This has a lot of information on it. So I'm going to suggest, if you're at home on your computer, you can pull it up. If you're here in person or on the phone, you can pull this up later. But this is a home in Highlands Ranch, and we've got 4 columns here. And what the first 2 columns are showing is a tax calculation from the prior value, 2022, tax year 2022. See if we got a laser pointer here. And what I want to do is show that this property was valued at $583,000 in 2022, and you see the taxes, $3,707. Now, they were $3,855 because the assessment rate used to be $715 and was reduced to $695. All right. So that's where we're starting. That was the tax bill for this property this year. Those are the taxes they actually paid. Now, fast forward to today, we've got a reassessment of this property at $857,000. Representative Frizzell mentioned the $15,000 adjustment. And you notice the assessment rate only went down to 6.765. We mentioned this earlier. That's a decrease of 2.71%. Well, the assessor's value increased by 47%. And the assessment rate's only down by less than 3. So that's why we're not all noticing it. And that's why we're panicking. What is also shown on this chart are all the authorities and their respective mill levies that this particular property pays into. All right. Now, assuming the mill levy doesn't change, the total mill levy, then we've got a 40% increase in taxes for this property on a 47% increase in value. I'm going to continue on and talk about the last column, which is Senate Bill 303, and I'm just going to point out the bottom line. We talk a lot about this bill being property tax savings, and I just want you to look at the percent increase in taxes on this particular property is still 33%. So Tabor's going to go away, and they're going to give you a 7% cut on this largest property tax increase in the history of Colorado. Now, we could talk a lot about mill levies, but I want to say this. We can all speak to our taxing authorities this year, whether 303 exists or not. We could have done that last year. We could have done it the year before. Proposition HH, which is Senate Bill 303, doesn't change that. And by the way, the cap that's in there, how is it a cap if it's optional? It's optional. And you don't get to vote on it. I don't get to vote on it. Those entities that are running those authorities get to make the decision as to whether they're going to implement their own cap or not. And so if you're going to challenge our approach here, where we're showing the mill levies going unchanged. Well, all you got to do is look at history. There's 300 and some 30 or so taxing entities in Douglas County. There are thousands in the state of Colorado. If you look at their history, they rarely decrease their mill levy unless they're required to do so. Okay, so this particular chart shows one property that's calculating taxes in several different approaches. What's last year? What's this year? With and without Prop HH. I think it tells the whole story. Now, where do we go from here? This is just an example that allows us to talk about this and ask questions and have a conversation. That's what I think about it.
Assessor Domish, thank you so much. I know we greatly appreciate, as fellow elected officials, your depth of experience and understanding on this issue. I know we have an online question, Tia.
Yes, we have an online question from John. He asked, my value went up from 80% from 1.2 million to 2.2 million. I would like to sell my place in a heartbeat for the new value. It's at least 700,000 higher than he could actually sell it for. What can he do?
So the first thing to do, and I'm sorry, this is Assessor Domish again. The first thing that you should do is ask the question, could you have sold the property for that amount in the spring of 2022? And if the answer is no, then file an appeal. And that gives my staff an opportunity to take a closer look at that property and answer the question, is that true or not? And if the answer to us is no after looking at the data, then we're going to reduce that value and you're going to see a lower number on your notice of determination. I'm going to be honest with you. If we look at the data and see that the properties in that neighborhood and the comparable sales sold for that pricing, then you might not get a reduction. We are not going to reduce 100% of the properties. I do not want to apply 100% of the appeals. I do not want to apply that tonight. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Assessor Domish. I think we have another online question.
Yes, Pamela is asking, what is going on with the commissioners joining Douglas County in the lawsuit against Colorado?
Commissioners want to take that one? Commissioner Thomas?
Well, I'd be happy to talk about that. And so as commissioners, individually and collectively, we do not believe that this bill is property tax. This bill is taking away your Tabor refunds. So it's saying one thing but doing another. And we felt that we needed to take the lead and tell the governor, you got it wrong. We need to go back and get this fixed. So we're going to depend on a judge to do what we believe is right. There are 4 different things in 303, and the Constitution says you can only have one thing in a bill, not 4. So what has happened is they have put something that's very popular, property tax relief, and then snuck something in there that's not very popular, taking away your Tabor refunds. So if you vote for property tax relief, you might only get a 5 or a 10% relief. One of these up here is 7%, but your Tabor refunds are gone forever eventually. So that is why we joined. Other counties have contacted us today, and they want to join this as well, because somebody needs to stand up for all of you, the homeowners in this state, and that is what we are doing.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. Obviously, probably appropriate for the 3 of us to speak to that. But again, it's per my comments earlier. I do think it's a violation of the single subject provision in our Constitution. It's not a law that was passed by a legislature 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago. It's in our Constitution, and so. We all follow the Constitution. All 3 of us took oaths to protect and defend the Constitution, both of the United States of America, but also of Colorado. So quite frankly, I see it as us doing our duty to protect and defend the Constitution of the state of Colorado, to be a party to this lawsuit for all the reasons mentioned by Commissioner Thomas. On a personal note, Assessor Damish, listen, Toby's I hope everybody has an appreciation how on top of the situation he is. He takes his responsibility very serious. Before Representative Frizzell left office as assessor, she was starting to give us some of this data and hand it off right off to Toby to really do the heavy lifting. And it's been made clear. This doesn't, if this is tax relief, and let's assume that, okay, great, it doesn't go far enough. So that's an additional motivation for me to be a party to this lawsuit along with my colleagues.
Yeah, and maybe just a final comment. I'm very proud of my colleagues and that the three of us are willing to join in this lawsuit. And very simply, in Douglas County, you did not elect us to reach into your wallets and have government come after you. You elected us, all 400,000 of you out there, to be your voice to the government. We're going to continue to do that.
Thank you. And we have another phone question, Tia.
Yes, we do. But before we go back to the phones, I just want to make a quick announcement about where people can view the slides. That web address is douglas.co.us/town hall. Douglas.co.us/town hall. Now we're going to hear from Lola. Lola, go ahead.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank everyone for supporting this lawsuit. This is just the first of a lot of the state taking control of the county. I mean, the zoning issues, anything that relates to housing, the state is looking to take over all control of county. So thank you for taking this step, and I hope that you're as aggressive on other things as it relates to the state taking over zoning, et cetera. So with that, my question is, that has the appeal process changed in the last 5 years? I've done a couple of appeals and got notification, no go. Next door, as you can imagine with social media, is on fire about this appeal process. Most people are saying that have filed the appeal process have said the exact same thing. They said the first appeal, you'll get a no, that you got to go the second level and the third level. And the people that have gone the distance said they always come out on top of it. So I'd like you to address that, because I do feel that sometimes it's just you're processing a lot of appeals and you're just checking the boxes. You look at one thing, check it, and pass it on. So what chance do we have to come back after you say no to try to fight this and get a better understanding of what we're saying is the case versus what you're saying?
Assessor Domish, process?
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you for that question. It's a good one, and it's another one that we get frequently. I think you might have a different experience this year if your experience historically has been that you haven't gotten decreases. There is sort of a mythology about what our statistics are about this, but the fact is every year has been completely different. One year our adjustment rate's 20%, and the next year it's 50. It's really been all over. And it's true that if you do not have success, at least your expectation of it at an assessor level, you can continue on to the County Board of Equalization. And here's why that can be successful, is because it's no longer in the hands of my office. So at the second level, your county commissioners hire a panel of real estate appraisers, and they hear that case at the second level. So you have a third party, a disinterested party, who's now making the decision. And so I think that by itself is the explanation for why you could have success at the second level versus at the assessor protest. But I want to say this: our staff are focused on doing the best job for Douglas County residents and Douglas County taxpayers this year at the first level. They are trying really, really hard to get it right. And if you provide us, first of all, if you provide us just an appeal, postcard, sign your name, turn it in, they're going to do a whole bunch of analysis. But anything else you give us, they're also going to look at that. Give us a chance to at least look at it. And if you're not satisfied, continue on to CBOE and we'll see what happens there. By the way, at CBOE, let's say my office has 15,000 appeals this year when we normally have 5. We do not have an infinite amount of time to look at every single one. I'm going to admit that. We have to go from one to the next and one to the next and get this done by August 15th. At CBOE, we're going to have many, many, many fewer appeals because hopefully a lot of petitioners have been satisfied between now and then. All right. At CBOE, all of a sudden our appraisers have a lot more time looking at it. And one thing that can happen at CBOE is our own staff go into the hearing and say, we looked a lot more closely at this at the second round, and they come in and recommend an adjustment. So that's another possible. Now, third level is Board of Assessment Appeal. And just real quickly, if you're dissatisfied at CBOE, you can file on to the BAA, and that is the state of Colorado has control over that hearing. So now you have someone entirely out of the county who's making the decision on the appeal.
And I just want to say, we are so proud of this assessor's office. I know I'm biased, but I think it's probably the best assessor's office in the entire state. And I think you're hearing why so many are leaning on Toby and Representative Frizzell for their expertise. I'm going to go to some questions in the hearing room. Yes, ma'am. Want to just tell us your name and where you're from?
Becky Fisher, Castle Rock. And I just have a question about 303 to the lady from the state. You implied that the assessment rate will go up to 7.1 next year. If you look at Mr. Domish's chart of the assessment rates from 1982 to now, the rate has never been increased. So why are you implying that that will happen next year?
Great question. Elise?
Absolutely. And I partially misspoke. It's not in 2024 that it goes back up to 7.15. It's in 2025. Thank you. Whew. Got lost in time there. So this was essentially a temporary fix that we worked on called SB 238. And prior to that, there was another bill that did a temporary fix because this issue has been coming and coming and coming. And I agree that it was the repeal of Gallagher without an immediate replacement. And what we've been doing is these sort of tire patches. And so what we did was say that you can temporarily lower the assessment rate and then bring it back up to the 7.15 after the temporary period. So for the next 10 years, it will go back up to 7.15.
The Gallagher chart?
Yes. That one. So if you notice, I believe the areas where it's yellow is where it would have been calculated to be a higher rate, and yet the legislature chose to keep it frozen at the lower rate. So why are you implying that the legislature would increase it and scare people that the taxes are going to go up if they don't vote for this?
Because they were sneaky, is the answer.
Because that's
Look,
what we were.
they implemented a temporary relief rather than changing it and implementing a number that would stay in place. They deliberately put a number that was temporary that would last for 2 years, allowing it to reset. So it's a workaround tabor. It's a workaround tabor. Instead of just lowering it, because if they just lowered it, then you're right, it would have stayed there. Yes, they is our state lawmaker.
Anything else from the panel on that? Okay, I'm going to go to another hearing room question. Hi, sir.
Hi, Russ Maneri, Perry Park. You mentioned a couple terms with which I am not familiar. CBOE and DAA or something. What are those?
CBOE is County Board of Equalization. So if you file an appeal with your county assessor, my office, we're going to send you an NOD, notice of a decision, in August. If you're dissatisfied, there'll be directions on how to continue to the next level. That is CBOE. That will be held in September and October. If you're dissatisfied with that result, you can then file on to the Board of Assessment Appeals, BAA. You don't need to remember any of this because it'll be on your documents. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Minery. Thanks for being with us tonight. Yes, sir.
Jim Darian, Highlands Ranch. I'm not a resident. I live in Texas. I'm here this summer for my grandkids. I think I heard something about a senior exemption. I'm 71. A senior exemption, one-time deal that you didn't have to meet the 10-year. Did I hear that wrong? It was $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
My question is that only for Colorado residents? Okay. So My next question is on this ballot, which I won't be able to vote on, but I'll be out there telling people because I am a taxpayer. What's the right vote? Because we had one of these in Texas too, and you didn't know whether to vote yes on it or vote no on it. So what's the right vote? No? All right. Thank you. And thank you to most of you all for helping keep the government out of our back pockets.
Sure, and I'll
Thank
jump
you for
in here.
sacrificing time with your grandkids to be here. Wow, that's impressive.
I'll jump in here because it's not a balanced panel. And that's okay. This is a complicated issue. But the thing is that the right vote is the vote that you choose. Yes, this is a governor's proposal. Yes, we worked on it, but we didn't make the decision. The decision lies with the voters. And it is up to you to look through and say, hey, is $5,000 to $10,000 of property tax relief over the next 10 years worth a few hundred to a few $1,000s of lost Tabor refund? Because it is truly, I mean, I've calculated in the last year, it's a 10-to-1 match, where you're getting substantially more property tax reduction than you are getting in Tabor relief. So everyone needs to make that judgment themselves and make their vote for themselves.
Thanks for that, Annalise. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Dan. I'm not yet a Douglas County resident. I wish to be one. And this is why I read that blue book. A lot of people don't, but those things that sneak in with the mill levies, no, 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 no. And now everybody's finding out just what those are. But maybe it's a question, this question is as a political aspect as well as a policy aspect. But what are the chances of us reinstituting Gallagher, and at the same time, let's lower the commercial property property tax rates? Let's go for both. And what are the? I'd like both of you women to, give me an idea of how successful we could be at that and how we go about it. Thank you.
Where are you from?
Right now, Denver County.
Came to Douglas. Okay. Well, we welcome smart residents. So thank you. Representative Frizzell.
Well, welcome to the promised land, Dan. So to answer your question regarding how do we bring Gallagher back, I would say that there's probably very little appetite to reinstate Gallagher as it was, and we should talk about that. There were issues around Gallagher as our state real estate market has essentially become bifurcated between the urban corridor of Larimer Weld, all the way down and now into Pueblo, but which was really driving those reductions. We were seeing in the urban corridor much greater increases in property values than they were in the rest of the state. So real estate in our urban corridor drove that residential assessment rate down. So that worked for us really well. It really didn't work well for the rest of the state. And the reason is because they weren't seeing those value increases, but they were experiencing the reduction in the assessment rate. And so their service providers, their fire protection districts, their library districts, et cetera, were coming to many of them were really, really suffering from lack of revenue. Their revenue from property taxes had been decreasing over time simply because this residential rate had decreased while their residential values were not increasing, or their commercial values for that matter. So that's one of the reasons why this Gallagher conversation has been very important and very active for a number of years now. I would say probably the last 10 years. And that was part of the reason behind the repeal. There were other reasons given. One is that it would help business owners and commercial property owners, non-residential property owners, because of the way the residential assessment rate was calculated. I still maintain that was, I'll use the word hooey again, because that's my professional term right now. and because the tax calculation for commercial property hasn't changed. The assessment rate until last year hadn't changed. Everything was at 29%. And so that the change, getting rid of the 45-55 split made virtually no difference. The other piece of that, the language behind the Gallagher, the Gallagher amendment repeal, when it hit, does anybody remember what it said? Without an increase in taxes. Remember that? Yeah, that was awesome. So the property tax system in the state of Colorado is broken. I think we can all agree on that. It is broken. It was not doing well before the Gallagher repeal, and that was essentially the nail in the coffin. Since Gallagher was repealed, the legislature has been exercising their now new right to manipulate assessment rates to account for changes in the market. I don't believe that 303 is the answer. I think it's an overly complicated system that shoehorns the citizens of the state into a policy that lasts for 10 years, perhaps longer. But the idea of bringing Gallagher back is not on the table. And it would probably require a vote of the people, and the clock is ticking away on that particular idea. It is. You're right.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you very much, Representative. I mean, that was a very important question to answer, and thanks for the comprehensive answer on that. We are coming to the bottom, to the top of our final half hour. And before we get to our polling question for everybody, we do want to go and take a couple more questions from the phones. Tia, phone question, please.
Yes, now let's hear from Henry. Henry, go ahead.
Hi, appreciate you taking my question.
You bet.
Referring back to the example calculation on the house in, I forget where it was, Highlands Ranch, whatever. I live in Valley Park, and the numbers are pretty darn close to what I have as far as assessed value, but my property taxes went up 100%. And I'm not sure what my mill levy is. I didn't look that up yet, but I can't believe it'd be any higher than 138.222, but 100% just knocked me off my chair.
That would knock me off my chair too.
Is there?
Yeah. So
Is there?
I would ask you. Yeah. So let me say one thing about, we are required to publish estimated taxes, and what makes this, and that means on our website. All right. And what makes this year extraordinarily difficult among all this other stuff is the one thing we know about our published estimated tax on the county assessor page is that they're wrong. That's all we know about them. And why is that? Because we don't know where we're going to land this year on assessment rate, because we have an assessment rate that's current, 6765. We have an assessment rate that's proposed in Proposition HH. Also, mill levies don't get determined to the end of the year. And so this is where our participation, whether Prop HH becomes law or not, is really important. And so if mill levies are able to go down, then that estimated tax will go down. All right. So if you have a 100% increase in your estimated tax, that's alarming to me. The only time that should happen right now is we've got new construction, something very significant changing about the property, a change in use, a new building, something like that. So I would ask you to call our office and speak to an appraiser and dig into why that has happened for you. And we'll have an answer as to what the reason is, whether it's right or wrong. We'll have an answer and be able to find out.
Okay, thank you, Assessor. And it does look like we have another phone question. So Tia, another phone question, please.
Yes, let's go to Nick. Nick, go ahead.
I would like some help understanding why the Tabor Amendment, which is mission to provide restrictions, seems to be over collecting and refunding on some whimsical basis. If it's restrictive, why doesn't it just collect the correct amount or close to it?
That's where I wish my old 8th grade algebra teacher, State Treasurer Williams, was here to help us with that one. But Representative, is that something you'd like to help tackle?
So as a point of clarification, are you referring to local taxing entities or are you referring to the state government?
Well, at this time, I'm just, the local entity, which is our discussion for tonight, I think, for taxes.
So Douglas County doesn't voted itself out from under Tabor, I think, in 1995. So Douglas County does not have Tabor. We managed to Tabor, and anything over Tabor, we put in piggy banks for road projects. That's how we just put $101 million into fixing Highway 85, a state highway, because the state's not taking care of its roads. But we've been talking about Tabor refunds tonight, which are at the state level. And so there's no way for the state to understand what that calculation is going to be about how much revenue they can keep, because that is based on population growth and the consumer price index. And so until the end of the year, when they figure out that number, is when they can figure out how much money they can keep. And anything over that is what needs to be refunded. So while your question is a good one, there's no way for them to figure out what that number is ahead of time. And with that, I think we've got people in the back that are going to explain the polling question that's coming up. And if you're in the room, you will get a form to fill out the question on your own. So Caroline?
All right, thank you, Commissioner. It's easy to participate. All you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. If you're participating online, just click your response. Here's the question. After listening to tonight's call, what do you want more information about? Number one, why do we have this valuation and property tax increase? Number two, senior property tax exemption and other resources for older adults. Number three, taxing authorities on my property tax statement. 4, potential measures on the November ballot. Number 5 is appealing my assessed value. I'll repeat that one more time. After listening to tonight's call, what do you want more information about? Number 1, why do we have this valuation and property tax increase? 2, senior property tax exemption and other resources for older adults. 3, taxing authority on my property tax statement. 4, potential measures on the November ballot. And 5, appealing my assessed value. We'll report on the results after we take a few more questions. Commissioner Layden, let's take some questions from the room.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for that, Tia. We have a question right here. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Charles Donelick. I've heard all the words here, especially from the elected official, that for the sympathy of the large amount of increase. The only thing that I don't have any hope in is being able to have this rectified or done for the next period of when we have to pay taxes. I don't have any hope with what has been said here tonight. I have protested my property a couple of times and got denied. And I even went to the second level on one and got denied. And one of the things that I was told back then, which was several years ago, is that the property 2 doors down from me had 4.5 acres, like I did. His house is valued less than mine. And the reason was because his view was blocked. My view was not blocked. I never got an answer on the valuation on view and really what that meant. I don't know, maybe now that we've got a new assessor and so on and so forth, and maybe all new people in the assessor's office, that maybe that has changed. I don't know, but I've already filed for an appeal on the 30th of this month, but I didn't attach anything. I'm going to bring it with me, extra copies, so that the people that look at it, is that okay, or do I need to do something else different?
Thanks for that question, sir. Assessor?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So you have filed an appeal at assessor level already. Is that correct for this year? And you have more to give us? Is that you have?
The website, when I filed online,
Yes.
it said to upload your attachments.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't have any attachments then. I just wanted to get in line.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So you can still email those to us at our office and go to our website. And if they're digital documents, you can send an email to assessors@douglas.co.us, and our staff will get that and include it in your appeal. If you've got something complicated, I would really recommend you schedule a meeting and come in and bring it to us in person. Now, you don't have to do that. Oh, you've done that already?
We did that. We have a May 30th meeting scheduled.
Oh, you do? Okay. So good. You're perfect. So bring it then. You'll sit and you'll meet with an appraiser.
I could just bring it with me.
You can bring it with you.
Okay.
And they're going to hear you out. And then they will go back and attach that to your appeal and everything you've submitted so far.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Fine.
I'm sorry you have such a nice view. Darn.
I want to know how that's assessed.
That's right. I'm not the assessor. You're going to have to talk to this
So
guy.
you will not. I want to say one thing about the meetings you have with your staff. That is informative and advisory and educational. They will not say at that time, hey, here's the answer. They will take everything you give us and then they'll go do a bunch of research and then you'll hear back in August. So make sure you ask that question to the appraiser and then that will instruct them to go find out the answer for you about what your view is or is not worth.
Now, to go back to one of your original statements, though, so you started by saying you didn't have hope in what you had heard up here so far. Obviously, I hope the assessor just gave you some hope in terms of what your personal process is. But I'll tell you, your hope is anchored in my hope. And my hope is this lawsuit that we're a party to will succeed. And I think Ms. Steele is probably going to go all cage match on me here over making a statement like this. But I hope it succeeds. And I hope that the courts enjoin Proposition HH from moving forward if the governor does not call a special session so that Representative Frizzell and her colleagues can meet again to readdress the provisions in Senate Bill 303, Proposition HH, then actually your county commissioners, we do have a big role then. Part of the forms that you've seen, the graphs that you've seen, have been when we have given tax credits on our portion of the property tax bill for the last 5 years, 3 years. Since we were first warned about it, before she was Representative Frizzell, she was Assessor Frizzell, we were already talking about a substantial property tax credit for this coming year. Our only problem is if we go back to that pie chart that showed what the school gets, what the metro districts get, what the county gets, we can only give a tax credit on the part for the county that you see up there. We will do that. We've been talking about doing it for months. I can't tell you how much that's going to be right now because of everything else in play. But if all else fails, our lawsuit goes through, the legislature does not convene a special session to reintroduce provisions of 303. I feel pretty confident, and of course my colleagues can throw things at me right now, but I feel very confident we will give a property tax credit on the Douglas County portion for this coming tax year.
I know we have the answer to our polling question, but Representative Frizzell?
I just wanted to piggyback on that really quick, Commissioner, because I have applauded our commissioners for years for providing this mill levy reduction, temporary tax credit to the citizens. And of course, that is just the county's portion. Senate Bill 108, I was really happy to join with Senator Baisley on, and it made it through the Senate and the House both. And what it does is it allows all taxing entities to, without affecting their status with Tabor, with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, with their own revenues, to provide those tax credits, those temporary mill levy reductions. So it's not just the county that can do it anymore. It would be any taxing entity that has the contractual ability to do that. There are metropolitan districts that are not going to be able to do that. But that's a big deal when it comes to some of these other taxing entities that have never had the ability to do that.
Thank you, Representative. Tia, did you have the answer to that polling question?
Yes, earlier we asked, after listening to tonight's call, what do you want more information about? 11% want to know why there is a valuation and property tax increase. 18% want more information on senior property tax exemption. 6% would benefit from more information on taxing authorities listed on their property tax statement. 45% potential ballot measure, and 20% appealing the assessed value. Thank you for all your questions tonight. We're going to begin our wrap-up. Representative Frizzell.
Well, thank you very much, Tia. Thank you to everybody who is listening in tonight and that took the time out of their day to be part of this, both in person and virtually. This is an important topic. It's critical that we get this right in the state of Colorado. And I think I've voiced my opinion on the direction that we've taken it. I am very disappointed that we are not getting it right. It is going to take good folks like you to talk to your neighbors, to get the word out, to learn more, to attend meetings of those entities that you pay taxes to. Be present at those budget meetings. Make sure that those board members who determine your levy hear you and understand that they shouldn't get a penny more of revenue from you than they already do. So I am grateful to be part of this, and it is truly an honor to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Frizzell, and those are excellent comments, well thought out and certainly well informed. I just want to focus on the survey because a lot of that was focused in my office. You can get a lot of these questions answered online. What we can do for seniors, because we've only talked about some of this tonight. We've talked about the senior exemption. We haven't talked about a big topic, which is a property tax deferral. So if you are or know someone who is really in a hardship with paying taxes, there's a new property tax deferral program that's been created by the state of Colorado. In terms of needing help to filing an appeal, we've got an excellent online appeal system, which makes it really easy. You can file an appeal online in just a few clicks. And if you have any questions about how any of this works, we've got public assistance staff who are ready to answer your questions. We've got a whole team of people who are answering our questions. The phone number for your county assessor is 303-660-7450. So we stand ready to help you through this process, and we're going to be part of this we're going to be a part of this conversation for the rest of the year as well, as Representative Frizzell mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Assessor. You know, I would say as a Douglas County Commissioner, this is a really special place. where we all live. And it's an incredible honor to serve each and every one of you. It doesn't surprise me that we have somebody here from Texas, somebody here from City and County of Denver, because I think people notice that we actually are not interested in taking any more money out of your wallets, and that we like to give it back because we don't need any more. Again, we have a balanced budget here. We are out of debt, and we want to continue to be good fiscal stewards of every single penny that you entrust us with. So thank you for that. Commissioner Teal.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Again, this is something that we've seen coming. This is something that we've been doing work on for several months, but it's go time now. And it's time that we do need to make decisions, and we got to start making hard decisions. I hope we are demonstrating that we're prepared to do that work for you from the assessor's office. For goodness sakes, Representative Frizzell, House 45 here in Castle Rock and parts of unincorporated Douglas County. I hope you understand that we're ready to do that work for you. And the work is by no means done tonight. Before I hand off, though, I do want to really thank Annalise Steele from Colorado Concern for coming in. She was not lying earlier when she said this was not a balanced panel. And at the same token, I, for one, I never want to hear propaganda coming from one side without having the opportunity to hear from the other side. And so, Annalise, I know we asked you to have a very long, difficult evening with us, but thank you so much because you did give the other side of the story that that I believe the people of Douglas County deserve to hear as well. So thank you very much. Again, thank you everybody that joined us on the phone. Thank you if you're watching online. Most specifically, thank you all who joined us here in the room, gave us the great questions this evening. Commissioner Thomas, would you like to take us out?
I will. Thank you, Commissioner Teal. So thank you for everybody being here. Earlier this year, the commissioners did our survey that we do every other year. And one thing that really stuck out on that survey is that citizens in Douglas County were about to the breaking point when it came to paying taxes. And I think that's evidence in the room and online that you've had it. So this is something that we wish we could give you the answer to, but we can't. 3 years ago in 2020, the voters got rid of Gallagher because it started with without increasing taxes. Now, does anybody in the room here think that that's what the truth was? But here we are. So I do understand why business has concerns. And we all know that business don't pay taxes because they push those taxes down to all of us. So 3 years ago, when Gallagher was eliminated, the governor should have gotten all the stakeholders together, business, counties, metro districts, all the stakeholders, and had conversations so we would have all the answers to these questions instead of rolling this secret bill out a week before the legislature ended. I was on phone calls with Kerry Kennedy for 2 months, begging her to tell us what was going to happen. And all we were told is it's something about truth in taxation. And what we got was nothing at all about what we had been prepared for. So that's why we have joined a lawsuit. We are going to continue trying to get this right so that all the stakeholders can be at the table under the bright light so the right answer is found for all of us. So stay connected, stay involved, stay informed. Good night and God bless to everybody.
Thank you. I just want to repeat the website that was given out earlier. It's douglas.co.us/assessor. On behalf of Douglas County, thank you for joining us this evening. If we didn't get to your question tonight, we invite you to submit any question you may have about this or other topics to douglas.co.us/citizensconnect at any time. We hope you will join us again for future town halls. Good night.